Hi, this is Dr. Jacquie Hadnot, and welcome to The Exchange. Today we're talking about a subject that is becoming so prevalent in our society that I felt led that we just had to do a show on it. With the holiday seasons, with our financial and economic crisis that we're going through, so many people are walking into the realm of depression. Yeah, that's right, depression. I know it's a departure from our other shows, but this is necessary because so many people are struggling, battling in the grip of depression. And I brought a friend with me today that has written a dynamic book called Defeating Depression. And I know that this book is going to help anyone watching or listening with this element of depression that you may be encountering right now. So I want to welcome to The Exchange my friend, my sister, Dr. Margaret Wright, author, teacher, and dynamic woman of God. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Dr. Jacquie, for us to really talk about this subject matter and just to get this out during this season of time, which is, by the way, the highest period of time when there are suicides based on depression.
What is depression?
Dr. Jacquie, depression is more than just feeling sad or blue. The medical society says that depression is a long-term illness, mental illness, and it is hard for you to cope from day to day. Depression defeats everything you're trying to do because it attacks your emotional skills and you just cannot carry on with your life. That's what they're calling depression, which is really true. It is a terrible disease that stops you dead in your tracks from doing what you would normally do day by day.
So who does depression affect?
Depression affects every area of our society. It's amazing. I went out to the internet along with some other material I had to just look at some statistics, and depression affects teenagers, it affects college students, it affects senior citizens, and it affects the clergy and the church, which might be a surprise to many.
I'm sure that it is. Let's talk about teenage depression.
All right. I found a statistic that was alarming, and it said that 160,000 young people between the ages of 16 and 24 are battling depression right now. Each year, that's the case. Then they looked at a study that was done in 2009, and it said that 1 in 5 people in that age group, 16 to 24, will have had some bouts with depression before they're at the age of 25. So it's really a sad thing.
My goodness. So you're saying that a lot of our teenagers, high school age kids, even college kids are battling with depression to the point where they may have to be medicated?
Yes. Medicated, counseling. There's so many avenues for us to talk about and for people to get assistance through that whole thing about depression. And you know, there are many aspects of it. So we do want to say that the Mental Health Society is doing a great job of counseling. Sometimes medication is needed. And then, Dr. Jacquie, there's also what I do and what you and other people do. There is a spiritual aspect to that too. So there are a lot of layers to depression that needs to be addressed so that the person can become totally healthy and whole.
I like that word you said, layers. And when we talk about layers in terms of depression, and well, maybe back up before we even go there. Do you believe that some of the school shootings and the violence in our schools that are perpetuated by young people, do you think that that's due to depression?
I think a lot of it might be because there are so many pressures that especially the young people are experiencing that maybe I didn't when I was their age. This is the technology age. This is the age where things are moving so quickly. There's so much available to young people right now, good and bad. And so they're not coping well. And then, of course, there's always this element that parents aren't parenting. The children many times are raising themselves. And when they don't know how to deal with a problem that is sometimes seems to be an adult problem, then their emotions shut down. They isolate themselves. See, that's what depression does. It causes you to shut down and to isolate, which is a very, very detrimental thing to do, to isolate yourself, because then you won't seek help.
That's true. So let's move forward with our college students. Mm-hmm. And we find that college students, because they have so much pressure to do well in school, peer pressure to keep up with the other kids in college, do you find that because they have to keep up with the peer pressure, that is a proponent for them walking in this state of suicide?
Absolutely. One study I looked at said that some of these young people never experienced depression before, but they got to college. They're on their own for the first time. So many times they're in a foreign place, meaning not their hometown, not their home state. They've gone away to college. They have to take care of themselves for the first time in their lives. They have to make their own decisions. Then they have the pressures of keeping up with their grades. They have peer pressure because there's partying and all that good stuff going on. So there's an awful lot of things they have to deal with. And many times when our emotions don't know what to do, then again we go to this shutdown, or we start moving into other realms like drinking, taking drugs, and other things, because we're trying to deal with the fact that life is caving in on us and we didn't realize or didn't know what to do about those life situations. So yes, there is an emerging statistic growing in college with children, young people, being depressed in college.
My goodness. Our young people are facing so much pressure.
Amen.
And it's causing them to be depressed, to drink, to take drugs, just to try to keep up. Mm-hmm. And what depression does, it ultimately will lead to suicide.
Amen.
And so as we get into our segments, that's something that we want to address. But we're going to take a break, mm-hmm. and we'll be right back with more of Defeating Depression with my guest, Dr. Margaret Wright. Stay tuned. With more of Defeating Depression with my guest, Dr. Margaret Wright. Dr. Wright, let's talk about adult depression. How does depression affect people, and young adults, middle-aged adults, and senior citizen adults? How does depression play out in our age brackets?
There is so much depression. There's enough to go around in every age group. That study that I mentioned talked about in 2009, because that's when the last time they had enough statistics. In 2009, 37,000 people committed suicide of all age groups. And out of that year, 1 million attempted to commit suicide. Out of all age groups, there is a pressure that people are not dealing well with. And Dr. Jacquie, there are many reasons. The economy is different than some people are used to dealing with. There's so many demands on us more than there used to be. We are finding ourselves having to be more technically astute than we haven't been before. The family dynamic has changed, and there's a lot of divorce and remarriage and blended families and all of that. I mean, society is so different now than it used to be, and there's no school to teach us how to live in this world that we live in now. So people just aren't dealing well with it, and we find through those statistics it's a large number of people that are not dealing well with it. Every age group.
Every age group, across the board. Depression, our financial situation that you just mentioned, our economic system right now is as such that People are losing their jobs by the thousands. Those that lost jobs ran out of unemployment. Those that ran out of unemployment became homeless. I mean, all of these things are factors into pushing people into a state of depression. And there really are no clear-cut answers when they say, well, how do I pay my bills, or how do I overcome this? And because they don't have the answers, because the governmental entitlement programs are dwindling every single day.
That's so true.
I did an interview with some homeless people down in Wichita last month, and they talked about the fact that they all lost their food stamps. And the gentleman's question was, how do you take something from people that already have nothing? And he said, now you're going to see crime increase like never before, because out of desperation or depression will come desperation, or vice versa. So in the midst of all of this economic downfall that we are experiencing, what do you see on the horizon in terms of people overcoming the depression?
Well, there's several things that you said that we need to really pay attention to. One is when people have tried everything they know to try, and I'm a minister, so I would say to them, we've got to try some new methodology. Maybe we need to try some supernatural ways of defeating depression. And we're finding that you said it's a domino effect. So when the entitlement is leaving, or when a man or woman cannot take care of their family properly because they no longer have the income, they no longer have the good job, they're trying to piece jobs together. So that dynamic will form a new dynamic that says I'm desperate, and that new dynamic will form another dynamic that says I'll get it any way I can. But all of those are aspects of depression, because when you're in that state, you're not thinking clear. You're not thinking of what is the legal way, what is the best way, who can help me. And remember, Dr. Jacquie, depression also brings along with us an emotional thing that says, don't tell anybody. So many people are going through these things and no one knows. That's why so many of them end up in suicide, because they'll say, oh my God, I'm so surprised they killed themselves. It's because they never talked about it. They never told anybody that we've lost our job. Now we're losing our house. It's going into foreclosure. Now we're homeless. Now we're on the street. Now I'm back selling drugs. Now, my wife or husband has left me. Now, it's just so many things happen, and our emotions have a way of dealing with things by shutting down, by turning off, or by saying, let's just bring it all in. Don't tell anybody now, because shame is there. See, when we have to remember that element of shame. And so they start thinking, I'm too ashamed to tell anybody what's going on. But if you don't speak of it, that's why I'm always telling people, don't suffer in silence. There are too many areas to turn to. Now, I know it's very difficult to tell someone it's going to be all right when they don't have a job. It's going to be all right when they're losing their house. But it will be all right if we can get that emotional state back healthy. Then you start thinking clearly. Maybe this is the opportunity for you to start your own business. That's right. You wouldn't know that because your mind isn't thinking that way. Depression has you in such a hole, in such a tunnel where you aren't even thinking clearly. So we've got to help people to get through the hump. And one of them is come alongside, start talking to individuals. When you haven't seen somebody in the family or a friend for a while, or they're not acting the same, address it. Don't just say, well, I guess they'll talk to me when they want to. You've got to be proactive and say something's wrong. Can I help you with something? Maybe you don't have money. Maybe you got extra room. Maybe you know someone that's hiring. Maybe you've got some work around the house they could do for extra money. But for people to suffer in silence, that's why we're seeing these random acts of violence, because they're dealing with depression, but they're not dealing well with it, and they're not telling anybody.
One of the things that we're also seeing is where family annihilators are killing the entire family.
Yes.
The husband's killing the wife and the kids. The wife is killing the husband and the kids, or the wife is killing, the mother's killing the children because they don't want to leave them here to suffer. And all of this stemmed from depression and what you just said, suffering in silence. And because they are suffering in silence, they're not telling anybody. They feel like the only way out is that I take my life, but I'm not going to leave my children here to be mistreated. I'm not going to leave my wife here to suffer and my kids here to suffer. So these family annihilators are killing the entire family. Mm-hmm. And then what happens if he tries to kill everybody, but he lives? So now you've got him alive and the whole family dead. This dynamic of depression and suicide and homicide has got to be addressed.
It must be, and it must be addressed in every area of society. It's a taboo in many cultures. Like the African American culture, we don't talk about counseling. We don't talk about suicide. It's a taboo. We're ashamed and all those things. But there is absolutely nothing wrong from getting legal help that will bring you out of a situation. And that's what we've got to talk to them about. We've got to tell our family members and our friends, if you cannot cope on your own, talk to somebody. You know, just like if you call your doctor's office and they say, if this is an emergency, dial 911. Well, we need to tell our family members, when you're in that coping place and it's not a good place and you're thinking about doing something to yourself or harm to someone else, dial 911. Call somebody. Don't think that it's going to go away. Don't think this is a random act. It's all right if you call and cry wolf in this case and it's not true. It's so much better than to continue to take it and internalize it, and then one day they've killed off everybody. There's a case that my daughter was telling me about a young man who had broke up with his girlfriend, and they had a child together, and he put on Facebook, I told you I couldn't live without you, and I told you that, you were going to suffer. And right after he did that posting, he killed himself and the baby. Because we're not dealing well with depression, and we're not talking enough about it.
That's true. That's true. We have to have an open dialogue about this situation, because it's only going to get worse. Stay tuned. We'll be right back because we want to continue this subject of defeating depression. Stay tuned. We're back, and we're talking about this very sensitive subject of depression and how to defeat depression with my guest, Dr. Margaret Wright. Let's talk about suicide in the church.
Wow, that is a subject matter. Remember, we were talking about taboo and shame. That's one of them. Suicide and depression in the church. And there's been several studies about that. Duke University did a study. They called 17,000 or 100,000, I don't know how many. They called quite a few pastors and asked a series of questions. And they found out that there is a higher number in the clergy or a higher percentile, in the clergy that is in a depressive state than in the regular population. The regular population is like 5.5%. The clergy is 8.7% that are in a state of depression. And many reasons for that, Dr. Jacquie.
We could do a whole 2 or 3 other shows just on the reasons why members of the clergy are in depression, but here's a few of them. Overworked, congregations that are growing or bulging and they don't know how to deal with the problems and the issues that they're facing, marital problems within their own marriages while they're trying to counsel other people, or in the respect of one of the pastors that I read about that committed suicide, his wife died, and I guess the pressure was too much for him, and he turned around and committed suicide. That depression had to be just constantly growing over the course of one day when she died and a year later. Between the span of that 365 days, it became such an overwhelming burden on him that he felt like his only out was to take his own life.
And you know, Dr. Jackie, that's interesting that is happening, because I believe one of the greatest reasons for that is so many people in the realm of the clergy there are two reasons. One is that they think their faith, that they're people of faith, they couldn't possibly be depressed. So they're not even recognizing it.
And that's crazy.
And that's crazy. The second thing is that if they're going through depression, they know they are. Who do I talk to? Because as you and I know, and now we're exposing to the world, that there is not a sense of trust in the realm of clergy. Who do you talk to about it? Will it spread throughout all the body of Christ? Will people look at me differently? How would my congregation respond to that? Will that diminish their trust in me? Do they think, oh, if he's or she is depressed, they can't tell me anything now. How can I go to them for counseling? How can I hear the word from them? So it's in that realm, there's so much secrecy in the realm of clergy with depression. That particular thing, depression and then suicide playing in the background, there's so many secrets about that has to be destroyed. We've got to talk about it. We are our brother's keeper. I need to check on you if I haven't seen you in a while, I haven't talked to you in a while, or someone said, you know, the last time I saw Dr. Jackie, she wasn't acting herself. That's a signal to me to do something. And so I really believe that we're our brother's keeper, and we need to, especially in the realm of the clergy, we need to keep up with one another a little better. We need to check on one another. We need to be concerned more. We're busy building the kingdom for God, but part of that kingdom is my brother and sister. That's a pastor, apostle, preacher, or whatever they are. So if we can destroy that realm of secrecy that surrounds depression, and if we can destroy that, then we can diminish this suicide that goes on, because it's an attachment that comes along with depression. It's a way out.
Yeah, which is really not a way out.
Right, but they feel, I don't have any other choice. And so one of the results, one of the remedies is to let them know there is another choice.
Absolutely. With that statement, let's talk about what are some of the other choices.
The first choice, the first thing that anybody can start doing right away is, I am a big supporter, coach, cheerleader for journaling. Start writing down so the individual can see, there's some dark things I'm writing in here. What's wrong with me today? Why am I writing such strange things? Why do I feel so blue and tired? Many times people don't even know. So start writing down, journaling your feelings. Secondly, don't keep that stuff to yourself. Don't you have one good friend, somebody you can talk to? Talk to them about it. Talk to somebody. Stop this cycle of suffering alone. It doesn't glorify God to do it. And many people think, oh, I'm just suffering silently for the Lord. No, you're not. Not in that realm. That's not the suffering that Jesus died for.
No.
He wants us to talk about it. He wants us to expose it. So we want to journal. We want to talk to a friend about it. If we don't have a friend, we need to find a counselor.
Absolutely.
And that's something that many cultures just dismiss. Oh no, that's taboo. And nobody's going to be counseling. But we need to find a good counselor. There are Christian counselors. There are secular. There are all kinds of people that really are good at that. So find a good counselor. I would suggest too, again, I'm going back to my area of expertise, which is in the religious realm. I suggest praying, talking to God about it. Because you'd be surprised, you wouldn't, but people would be surprised if they start just praying and saying, God, I need help. Then somebody might start calling them saying, I'm just checking on you. Oh, somebody really loves me, because depression will make you feel like you're not loved anymore. Nobody cares about you. That's part of that whole tunnel, going down that deep tunnel to end up in suicide. Didn't nobody care anyway. That's why I killed myself. Who cares? So that's another tactic, I think.
Awesome. I want to share something with you right now. If you are dealing with depression or you know someone that is, here's what I want you to do. First of all, I want you to get this book, Defeat Depression by Dr. Margaret Wright. And as she said earlier, she is a big proponent of journaling, and it comes with a journal. You can buy this book on margaretwright.net or Amazon.com?
No, just Margaret.
Go to margaretwright.net or write us here at The Exchange at itftv.com. Send us your information because this book will help you to defeat depression. She created this book in such a way that it's an easy read, it's an excellent read, and it's going to give you the support that you need to take you through this valley of the shadow of depression. She's here to help you today, and this book will help you and your loved ones because you never know who is going through or what they're going through. So give them your information, just like I did. Give them some more information on how they can contact you.
My email address is drmcw52@sbcglobal.net. Again, you can purchase the book at www.margaretwright.net. And just email me or hit me up on the website. I don't do Facebook. So contact me one of those ways, or you can write me at Margaret Wright, Dr. Margaret Wright, Post Office Box 11708, Kansas City, Missouri 64138.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this information because I know that it's going to help somebody, and your book is really going to help some people. So don't forget. She gave you the information. It'll be scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. But if you're dealing with depression, do not suffer in silence. Depression is the biggest thing the enemy will use against you. So hold on. Don't give up. There is help out here. Don't forget, write Dr. Margaret Wright if you've got questions. And she will write you back, pray with you, provide the support, or give you some guidance on whatever it is you need. You do not have to suffer alone. You do not have to suffer in silence. Remember, you can defeat depression. Now you stay tuned next week, and I'll be with you again with another subject to encourage you, inspire, and motivate you to grow higher and go deeper. Thank you for watching. You be blessed now.